In a quiet village nestled between mountains, there lived an old blacksmith named Thomas. His hands, worn from years of forging steel, were his pride. He had crafted tools, weapons, and even art for the people of the village. His work was renowned, and many came from distant towns to see the master at his forge. But Thomas's life was not without sorrow. Years ago, a fire broke out in his workshop. It consumed everything. The tools he had carefully crafted, the masterpieces he had poured his soul into, and even the anvil that had been passed down from his father. The loss devastated him. From that day on, Thomas couldn't bring himself to forge again. The empty shell of his workshop stood as a painful reminder of what he had lost. He spent his days wandering the village, helping others where he could, but his heart was heavy. Every time he saw the ruins of his forge, he would sigh, remembering the life he once had. "It's all gone," he would whisper, "and so am I." One day, a traveling merchant arrived in the village. He sold rare goods and told stories of faraway lands. Curious villagers gathered around him, eager to hear his tales. Among them was a young boy named Samuel, who often visited Thomas, drawn to his quiet wisdom. Samuel listened as the merchant spoke of a new city being built across the mountains, a place where skilled craftsmen were desperately needed. The merchant said, "They're offering land, tools, and a fresh start to anyone willing to help build their dream." Samuel's eyes lit up. He turned to Thomas and said, "You should go. You could start forging again." Thomas shook his head. "I can't leave this place, Samuel. This is my home. And my forge, it's gone. But that's why you should go." Samuel replied, "You can't build a new forge here, but there you could start fresh. You've taught me that steel can be melted and reshaped. Why can't you do the same with your life?" The boy's words struck a chord in Thomas. That night, he sat by the ruins of his forge, staring at the charred remains. Memories of his craft flooded his mind. The sound of the hammer striking steel, the warmth of the fire, and the satisfaction of creating something with his own hands. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. The next morning, Thomas made his decision. He packed what little he had and joined the merchant on his journey. The path across the mountains was long and treacherous, but with each step, Thomas felt a weight lifting. The further he moved from the ruins of his old life, the closer he felt to something new. When they arrived in the city, Thomas was overwhelmed by its energy. The streets buzzed with activity, and the air was filled with the sound of hammers and saws. The city was still taking shape, and the sight of others building something from nothing inspired him. He was given a small workshop and basic tools to begin his work. For the first time in years, Thomas stood before a forge, the fire glowing brightly. He picked up a hammer, his hands trembling with both fear and excitement. As he struck the first piece of steel, he felt alive again. Over time, Thomas's reputation grew. His new forge became a hub of activity, and his creations were celebrated far and wide. But more importantly, Thomas found peace. He realized that holding on to the ruins of his past had kept him from moving forward. By letting go, he had found a new purpose, one he never imagined possible. Years later, Samuel visited him in the bustling city. Thomas smiled and said, "You were right, Samuel. Steel can be reshaped, and so can a life. Sometimes, we must let go of what's gone to embrace what's waiting for us." This story reminds us that letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making space for new opportunities. When we hold on too tightly to what's lost, we can't see the paths that lie ahead. Life may take away what we cherish, but it also gives us the strength to start anew.